Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome. I'm just gonna wait a minute and let people hop on. Stop the scroll when you see me live. Stop by, say hi, leave a comment, thumbs up, hearts, all the things. I'm super excited to come on live tonight to chat more specifically about some of the things I shared the other day when I went live. So I'm just gonna wait a minute before I dig into that. And as you're joining, say hi. I went live yesterday or 2 days ago for the first time in 10 months was, I think, the last live I could find on my page without scrolling for days, but about 10 months. So it felt really good to come live again and have the interaction and to watch other people's lives, just to see people, hear people's voices. So it was really nice to do that. And I came on live a few days ago in a general kind of a way, just to sort of reintroduce myself after being off for 10 months and give a little bit of behind the scenes about what's going on, what's up, what I have coming, ideas that I have. And so tonight I'm going to dig in more specifically on one of the ideas that I'm going to be starting to offer. So as you hop on live, say hello in the comments. Let me know that you're here with a heart or a thumbs up. And tonight I'm going to be talking about prenatal, pregnancy, birth, postpartum. But honestly, this live is for everybody. Whether you're planning to be, you are pregnant, you're postpartum, you're a support person of a pregnant or postpartum person, or you know somebody who's pregnant or postpartum. Share this video, share the live, share it out, stay and watch, because this is what I've been trying to have all come together in my brain since I became a doula and then added on life coaching. This is like the culmination of it. This is what's been brewing inside of me, and this is how it's all coming together. Hi, Allison. So this birth imitates life, and that's why I say, like, whether you're a partner or not pregnant or postpartum, wherever you are in life, birth imitates life. The skills that we bring with us into the birthing space, whether you're the birther or the support person, these are all life skills. And birth is just pregnancy and birth and postpartum. It's a small microcosm or smaller representation of life itself. And so there's many, many lessons to be learned in the process, wherever you are in the process or however you're supporting someone in the process. So before we jump in, I just want to reintroduce myself. I have a lot of new people on my personal page that over the course of my journey are new to my world. So I just want to come in and say hello. So I'm Melissa Carrick. I'm in Buffalo, New York, and it is 8 p.m. here. So hello from wherever you are, whether it's day or night. If you're catching me live or on the replay, say hello in the comments. And my journey is ever evolving. I was a surgical tech for 12 years. I was assisting in surgeries. I slowly went more and more part-time until I became per diem. And then I added in massage therapy, yoga teacher, birth doula, life coaching. And so that was my evolution of work over the last, 12 to 13 years. Let's see. When did I graduate? So for quite a while, my careers have evolved. My personal development has evolved, and it keeps evolving. And so that's why I love doing this work, because it's never ending, right? You're always growing and evolving. The work that you do is always growing and evolving, and it all applies to life skills. So again, if you're new to my world, also in the past 10 months, I have been on a surrogacy journey. So a year ago yesterday, 2 days ago, is today the 8th? So on October 6th last year, I had an frozen embryo implanted, and I became a surrogate, and I delivered a baby girl for a local family on July 7th of this year. So a big chunk of that time I kind of took off from everything. I was still on Facebook, posting on Facebook, but I really wasn't doing stories or doing lives or really putting much work into my work. But what I was doing behind the scenes was building. I had so many ideas come through me while I was pregnant. And again, just this idea of how I'm this culmination of all the work that I'm doing between, especially between yoga and birth doula and life coaching, how it all ties together. And what I'm about to talk about is sort of the coming together of all of that. Thank you, Allison. I do love my story, and it was such an amazing journey and such an honor to be on that journey, to be chosen. I feel like I was chosen. I also feel like, it was part of my purpose. One of my life's purpose here on earth is fulfilled. I can check that off now. I had always wanted to be a surrogate, and I got to be a surrogate, and it was a beautiful, beautiful journey with lots and lots of lessons. And and all of that is contributing and enriching the work that I do. So what I want to come on today to talk about is PrEP. And it's a prenatal and postpartum emotional coaching program or coaching. PrEP is processing, releasing, embodying power. And I just think that it's so super important. And I always thought it was, but now that I've gone through this, I can bring experience to it. And also I can talk to other people now and see what they would have wanted, what they do want. And I've got some feedback here that I'm going to read a little bit later. And I think that that's so important because people don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what they're going to need in hindsight. Hi, Lindsay. So hindsight is 20/20, always, right? We always look back and say, woulda, shoulda, coulda, I wish. And so having some of this feedback that I'm going to read to you today is super important because you don't know what you don't know until you know that you didn't know it and that you wish that you had it, and looking back and that's always going to happen to some degree. I think even if you go through this emotional prep and coaching prenatally and postpartum, there's still, it's human nature to go in and question things. And even if you had a great experience, a great pregnancy, a great birth, feeling great postpartum, there's still like that ego brain that wants to question, well, what if this would have happened? And could this have been better? And what if I just did this a little bit differently? So even if you've had great experiences, our brain is always going to want to question things and wonder, always wondering, what if? And how could it have been better? And what could I have done? And then also on the flip side, if it wasn't what you expected, how are you going to process that? How are you going to move forward with it? How are you going to kind of shed the expectations that you have, grieve, right? Grieve the expectations that you had, and also work through guilt and shame and frustration and disappointment. Disappointment is such a huge emotion, especially for females. I believe, in my opinion, females struggle a lot with the disappointment emotion. And so how are you going to process through those, release them, replace them with how you do want to feel? And again, this applies in life, all of life, but through pregnancy, through the labor and birth process, and through postpartum. And I once had an interview with some doula clients, and the husband in this case, was asking me, they were more concerned about the postpartum period and how is a birth doula going to help in postpartum if I'm not a postpartum doula. And I was explaining to him that the experience of birth is going to affect postpartum because of all of the emotions. Again, the expectations that you have, whether it does or doesn't go the way you think it is going to go, if there's any trauma involved with that. all the emotions. And again, even if it does go the right way, that ego brain turning on saying, what if that, what if this, shoulda, woulda, coulda. And so your pregnancy and birth process really do come into play in the postpartum period. And then especially on top of that, we're compounding the fluctuation of hormones. And it's something. It's something for the person experiencing it and also for the partner, because they have no idea. All they can do is sit back and observe and support the best they can, but they really, in their head, they might be sitting there thinking, okay, I'm here for you and I support you. But in their head, they might be like, oh my God, what, is she serious? Did she really just go from 0 to 50 just like that? Yes, it's partners need support too. And that's where, the birth doula team is a great thing, because in birth, the doula is not there to replace the partner. They're there to enhance the partner's experience by giving them the tools to support the birthing person. So, the doula has the knowledge and can provide that physical, emotional support, but really the bond between the birthing person and the partner can't be broken by the doula. It can only be enhanced by the doula. So let me know in the comments if you're live with me or if you're catching the replay, if any of this is resonating with you, no matter where you are in life. This could apply to life. It could apply to pregnancy. If you've gone through birth, if you've gone through a postpartum period, where is this hitting home for you? And what questions do you have about it? Let me know in the comments whether you're live or on the replay. And so what I think is super important, and I'm just going to pull up some of the feedback. I went in and I asked, a lot of mom groups, pregnancy groups, what do you think about this emotional coaching that I'm going to be offering prenatally, postpartum? Would something like this have helped you, through your process? And again, it comes from a place of you don't know what you don't know until you wish you knew it. And you're looking back in hindsight saying, I wish I knew that. Emotional and mindset coaching in pregnancy, following up in postpartum, it's so important. It's so overlooked. Sometimes it's not even thought of. You're busy trying to do the best you can, be the best you can, especially if you're trying to conceive and if you've had issues conceiving, you're doing all the things, seeing all the doctors and the specialists and trying all the diets and taking care of your body and your mind. And then in pregnancy, same thing, taking care of your diet and exercising, and then the fun stuff. You're registering, you're having your shower, you're getting the nursery ready, resting. And we're preparing physically. We do the childbirth education, the breastfeeding classes, and figuring out, especially if you want to have, a natural or drug-free birth, you're figuring out natural ways for pain relief. So we're doing all the physical prepping. And sometimes it's not even a thought that, I have to prepare mentally and emotionally. And it's such a big part of it, and as intense as labor is. And I always throw out numbers, and there's no statistics on this. I completely have made it up, but I think that labor is 80% mental. Even though that 20% physical is super, super intense, it's 80% mental. Because if we're not in a great headspace mentally, emotionally, spiritually, our perception of pain increases, right? So our thoughts, emotions, feelings can actually increase the physical sensation of pain. And so that's why I say it's 80% mindset. And if we're in a good headspace, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it can decrease our perception of pain. And so it's so super important to get to hone in on that, right? Because what we bring into the space, what we bring into labor with us, it might not even be labor related. And this is why a lot of people overlook this aspect of preparation. It might not even be birth labor related. It might be a fight you had, 20 years ago with a friend or a family member. It might be some old childhood wounding or some old childhood trauma or stuck emotions that you've never processed through that are coming up in the labor process. Because the labor process and birth is a becoming. And I'll explain that through the stages of labor. So the stages of labor, you've got early labor, active labor, and transition. And it's that third part, that transition, that I think it's perfectly named transition, because you enter transition as one person. You leave transition as another person. And the way that it was explained to me once, that it was part of my doula training, and the way that they explained it to me, it stuck with me. I just thought it was such a beautiful representation of what happens, is in the transition process. You're deep in labor land. You've got all of the labor hormones, oxytocin, the love hormone, the feel-good hormone, serotonin, dopamine, like all these really good feel-good hormones. And you are just retreating within inside of yourself. And it was explained in this moment, when you're retreating within, you're bonding with that baby and you're ready to emerge on the other side as a mother, a parent. But while you're in that space, it's like you're downloading the new mother information. Whether it's your first baby, your 8th baby, it doesn't matter. A surrogate baby, you're in that labor land and you're downloading this new information, because when you come out of it, you're going to be a different person. And in that space, all that stuff can come up. All that past programming, all that past conditioning, old childhood wounds, traumas, stuck emotions, it can all come up in labor. And again, this is just my opinion and anecdotally, I have seen it in my work as a doula. If you're stuck, I don't like to use the word stuck in the labor process, but if you have been at a certain dilation for so long, a lot of times, if the baby's in a really good position, sometimes it can be positional, right? The baby's in, a funny position, or just needs to move a little bit more. Long labors can be positional. Sometimes it's emotional. And if you have been in the transition, then again, this is just my opinion. If active labor is long, I tend to think it's more positional. We need to get that baby and you into a new position. If you're in transition for a long time, that's where I think it's an emotional hang up. Where we're in that labor land, we're processing through old programming, conditioning, traumas, stuck emotions that we haven't resolved. So to resolve them before labor, in pregnancy, maybe even before pregnancy, if we're working together pre-conception and you're trying to conceive and you want to work through stuck emotions, that might even help you conceive. And that's sort of along the lines of, and I don't do acupuncture at all, but energy work, right? Any energy work, acupuncture, Reiki, even massage therapy, even though it's hands-on and physical, we're moving energy. Coaching, emotional coaching, we're moving stuck emotions. And so that may help you move through the conception process if you're struggling. It may help you have an easier, more enjoyable pregnancy. It can help you through the birth and labor for sure. And because it's already intense, right? So why make something that is super intense even more intense if we don't have to? So work through this stuff now, preconception, pregnancy, see what comes up in labor, and decide, do I want to take this with me postpartum? Will this serve me postpartum? And then in the postpartum period, set yourself up. Have that coach, have that support person who can help you navigate this space, because one, you're a new person. A lot of the postpartum period can involve the grieving of who you used to be. Your old lifestyle, your old habits, all these things who you identified as for so many years are now completely changing. So it's the realizing and the accepting and the grieving of who you used to be, and then the accepting of who you are now. And that can be super challenging when you have one foot on one side and one foot on the other side. Who you were, who you're becoming. And like I said, birth is a becoming. Whether it's your first baby, your 8th baby, a surrogate baby, you're going to change your life. And with that, in the postpartum period, we're changing relationship dynamics too. Something that people might not think about either. How is my relationship going to change? In every aspect. Physically, are we going to be connecting intimately? Our communication, how is that going to change? Or how can, especially in that period, you want to work on making it as effective as possible in that period. And what else? Boundaries, setting boundaries, which, that applies across the board for life, for birth, for postpartum. Setting boundaries is huge. It's such an energetic leak when we don't have good boundaries or healthy boundaries. And so setting boundaries, having effective communication, learning new relationship dynamics, learning balance, balancing self-care with newborn care, with relationship care, all these things coming into play while your hormones are readjusting and regulating back to normal. It's a lot. And so I want to share some of this feedback I received, because again, you don't know what you don't know until you wish you knew it. In hindsight, you look back and you're thinking, oh, I wish. So I had proposed this PrEP, emotional coaching program, to a group of parents, moms, and I wanted to share some of their feedback anonymously, because again, you don't know until you know. And so let me just see. Whoop, I don't want to zoom in. So we've got one piece of feedback here. I wish I had something like this when I suffered with postnatal depression after my 3rd child. I'm so glad you're doing this. So right there, after her 3rd child. So maybe not her first, her second, but, and then in her 3rd, she's realizing, this would have been something that would have greatly helped, through her process. I have another piece of feedback here. I wish I had more family and close help, just more people to rely on. God forbid something were to happen. Thank you for listening and hearing us as mothers. That statement alone, it's very general and brief, but so powerful. Thank you for listening and hearing us as mothers. Because here's what my experience was. And I, as a surrogate, obviously I don't have a baby to take care of in postpartum. But what really surprised me was, so my husband went back to work after 2 weeks, and thankfully, I don't know about where you are watching from, but in New York State, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, they changed the paternity leave for the partners. They increased it finally, because they used to just have 2 weeks. And that's what my husband took, just, because we weren't going to be having a baby to take care of after the fact. But let me tell you, even though we didn't have a baby to take care of, he went back to work after 2 weeks, and that first day alone for me, I was a wreck. I was crying. I just saw a picture that I took that day, and I'm in bed. I I'm not sure if I had my journal sprawled out in front of me, but I like had my little like half pint of ice cream and tears, and I just stayed in bed all day. And I thought, how does anyone else do this when their partner goes back to work and they have a baby to take care of? And so that was eye-opening to me. And then the other thing was I just kept wanting to talk about my experience, like how much I loved the whole experience, being pregnant, going through labor and birth, and not having it even go my way, but still being super grateful for the opportunity. And I just wanted to keep talking about it and like reliving it. But then after a certain point, like people have already moved on, like they're just over it. And from what I hear from other parents who do have babies to take care of, that's sort of how it is. Like after the birth, it becomes about the baby. And everyone's, oh, we're here to visit the baby. We're here to see the baby. How's the baby? Let me hold the baby. Let me take care of the baby. And what about you? Who's here to take care of you? Who's here to check on you? And it's really sad, and it plays in with all of your hormones readjusting and fluctuating all over the place. And again, if you're bringing in birth trauma that you're dealing with or past trauma and stuck emotions that you're dealing with, you just want someone to talk to. And so that very simple, brief piece of feedback, thank you for listening and hearing us as mothers, really touched me. Another piece of feedback, I wish I had known about doulas with my first. I had no clue. My husband was deployed and missed my entire first pregnancy and birth of our son. He came home when my son was 3 months old, so not only did he have to adjust to a civilian life again, but also thrown into being a father. So I'm going to pause there for a minute. So that brings in that whole aspect that partners need support too. And you need support, they need support, you need support together. Because again, those relationship dynamics are changing. How can we adjust our communication to be more efficient? How can we make sure we're taking care of each other? Because again, that focus shifts right to the baby, which I'm not discounting caring for a baby, but if you're not caring for yourself, you can't care for your baby. So partners need the support too. Let's see. Having a doula with me even after the birth would have been amazing. I also had a C-section. It would have been amazing to have someone with me to help me heal and take care of the baby and act as that extra support. Another piece of feedback, yes, definitely would have helped. I'm still struggling 5 months postpartum. And so that's a great point to bring up, because it doesn't matter how postpartum you are, whether you're 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, 10 years. Once you're postpartum, you're always postpartum. Postpartum, after baby, life after baby is always after baby. So you're always postpartum. And some people don't even recognize birth trauma as birth trauma. They might feel some kind of way 2 years down the road and don't link the two together. They don't realize that one caused the other. That, something that happened in my birth can still affect me 2 years from now, 5 years from now, because they don't even link the two together or think that they have anything unresolved, because so much of the focus is on healthy baby. Oh, at least you had a healthy baby. If you have to preface any comment with "at least," I might suggest rethinking how you say that. And so, of course, we want a healthy baby. Of course we do. But that doesn't diminish anything that happens in the birth that you consider to be trauma or affecting you. And let me just also say, trauma doesn't have to be something that's this huge, dramatic, traumatic thing. It doesn't have to be an emergency C-section. It doesn't have to be having a NICU experience. It can be anything that has affected you that you consider to be trauma. So this piece of feedback, yes, definitely would have helped. I'm still struggling 5 months postpartum. And I know the other thing I was going to say to that is sometimes things don't show up until maybe 5 months postpartum. So I'm 3.5 months postpartum right now, and there's still things that I'm learning, like around, let's see, I think right around 2.5 months. My hair, I started with the postpartum hair loss coming out in handfuls and chunks. And so, just things might happen down the road that aren't immediate effects. And the other thing is, just starting to live in your new body. Live in it, appreciate it, don't be mad at it, don't be hateful of it. I started working out with my trainer again at around 8 weeks postpartum, and even today. So today I'm 3.5 months, and I worked out with her yesterday, and I feel like in my daily activities, I feel normal. But when you put me into a situation where I'm doing a workout with my trainer and she has me do a movement, and it's like, oh, well, I need to modify that. And my body isn't totally healed yet. And another good analogy is, think about anyone who has, and I'm going to just specifically use athletes as an example, but really anyone. If you have a rotator cuff tear, in your shoulder, whether you have surgery or not, or if you're just going through physical therapy before surgery, you're going to baby that tear for months. You're going to go through physical therapy, you're going to go through ice and heat and rest and all the things. And then if you have surgery, if you actually, tear it, and it's not just, overuse, strained, sprain, if you actually tear it, that's like months and months of physical therapy. And then I think and I used to work in surgery, so I'm trying to think what they tell you the recovery period, your shoulder might not come back to normal function for a year plus. So they're treating shoulders, for months and months in physical therapy and a year plus after surgery. Yet here women are after giving birth, and whether you have a cesarean or a vaginal birth, your muscles are tearing or being cut. You might have to have stitches. If you did tear vaginally, you're definitely having stitches if you've had a cesarean. And they say 6 to 8 weeks, you're good. So you have to really seek out that extra support of a physical therapist, a pelvic floor therapist specializing in pelvic floor therapy, to really get that healing that you need. And then if you do start to work out again, really honoring your body for where it's at and not judging it and not shaming it. So lots of things going on. This definitely would have helped 5 months postpartum. She's still struggling. So another piece of feedback, I absolutely love this idea. I had 2 traumatic birth experiences which made postpartum that much harder. So I already talked about that aspect where the birth experience is going to directly affect your postpartum. I'm going through a divorce. At the time, I did have support from my husband and my parents. After my second birth, I almost died, and my then husband got deployed a month after I gave birth, and we had just moved to our new station. I had no help, even though this station is where we're from. Most of my friends moved, and his family was no help at all. That postpartum period was the worst, and it took everything to dig myself out. I'm just going to pause there for a minute. We shouldn't have to dig ourselves out. Ideally, we don't want to get that low enough where we feel like we have to be dug out. That doesn't mean that we don't feel emotions and let our hormones fluctuate and regulate, and it doesn't mean we don't feel and experience the postpartum. But when we feel them and we're alone and we feel unsupported in them, then we get lower and lower and feel like we need to dig ourselves out. So let's not get to that point where we have to dig ourselves out. And if we do get to that point, let's not think that we have to do it by ourselves. Get the help. Ask for the support. I wish I would have had more people checking in, even if it was just a text message or phone call. I was absolutely miserable, and I was healing not only from the birth, but from my birth injuries that I sustained from the hospital that were completely unnecessary. But that's another story. And that absolutely is another story, a whole nother story. And that's part of my work as a birth doula. And this emotional coaching, this is going to be incorporated in my work as a birth doula, but it's also something completely separate. So if you're with me locally and I'm your doula locally, we already do a lot of this in the folder that I hand out to my clients. There's a lot of mindset work in it. I offer additional calls to work through stuck emotions and anxieties and fears. But if you're from anywhere else in the world, we can do this. We can do this virtually. This is emotional coaching, prenatally, postpartum emotional coaching. Another piece of feedback, my girls are now tweens, so it was a while ago. However, I remember that with baby number 1, it was not really an issue. We loved it. She was an easy baby that slept and fed well. I was happy to be a stay-at-home mom. We loved being a family. 19 months later, baby 2 came along. It was stressful and complicated pregnancy as well. So again, we're seeing that pattern where pregnancy can affect the labor, can affect the postpartum. Then she was colic, didn't sleep, didn't feed well, didn't want to be put down until 2 years old. So I was diagnosed with postnatal depression a few months in. They were very, very different experiences. So that's a good point too, where I talked about it doesn't matter how postpartum you are, whether you're 5 weeks or 5 years, or it doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter what number baby it is, because every pregnancy, every labor and birth, every postpartum, completely different. Totally different each time, and we can't predict it. Another piece, yes, I love this idea of emotional coaching. I think we often leave moms high and dry to navigate postpartum on their own. I'm going to stop there for a minute. That is 1,000% true. Postpartum is referred to as the 4th trimester, and it's really the forgotten trimester. Because as I was saying, once you come home and you have your baby, it's all about the baby. How's the baby? What's the baby need? I'm going to come visit the baby. Let me hold the baby. Let me help you take care of the baby. And we need somebody to check in on us. So she says, I think that we often leave moms high and dry to navigate postpartum on their own. Oftentimes, their partners and support systems fall apart. I couldn't have done it without my husband, who took 12 weeks off and honestly did 60% or more of the responsibilities after my traumatic birth. We need to help women more with this. And I really think like this is what I've been called to do. The merging of my birth doula work and the knowledge I have as a birth doula and the experience I have with life coaching and mindset work, and merging it all together to really help women with this. And this woman had her husband take the 12 weeks off, and he did so much. And again, that's where, if you have a good partner and support system, that's amazing, but partners need support as well, and so that's huge. Let me think. Here's another piece. I would have totally loved something like this emotional coaching. My partner and I just got into what seemed like a never-ending new baby rut. Our schedules were off. I was an exclusively breastfeeding stay-at-home mom, and I think there was a lot of resentment because of that. Like I was doing it all. So that brings in a whole new dynamic. If you are exclusively breastfeeding, so much of it is on you, because breastfeeding is not so much scheduled. Like bottle feeding can really fall into a nice, neat little schedule, whereas breastfeeding is on demand. And so you feel like you're doing it all the time. That's all you do, one side, and then, by the time they've gone from side to side, it's time to start all over, and, the partners can't help. And so breastfeeding brings in a whole new dynamic. You feel like there's a lot of resentment because you feel like you're doing all the work. Someone who's been there and who's experienced in the postpartum period and could help me through would have been nice. Postpartum was 1,000 times harder than the birth itself. I didn't feel back to normal until almost 2 years postpartum. And so I was just talking about this aspect of it where when someone comes in with a shoulder injury and a torn rotator cuff, they're given that physical therapy. They're told you're not going to get back to normal function for probably over a year. Where in birth, it's like 6 to 8 weeks, go ahead, go do whatever you want. And where's the support and the care? And so here she's saying after 2 years postpartum, did she start to feel back to normal? I think this type of support would get a lot of birthers to feel more like themselves a lot faster. And so I think that really sums everything up, because she's talking about her postpartum experience and how getting the help ahead of time would have really helped. And that's why it's a prenatal and postpartum emotional coaching. We want to catch it before it happens. And then if we don't, we want to catch it while it's happening so it doesn't get too deep into it. And I think that might be, yep, that's all of the feedback I wanted to share. But it's so important to hear that feedback from people who have gone through it and are now in hindsight saying, yeah, that would have been really helpful. I would have really liked that. Because so many times we're not thinking about the emotional, the mental prep until it's too late. And again, it's never too late. I want you to always feel supported and safe and heard in all of your experience. And so I'm here for you for life coaching, for birth doula coaching, prenatally, postpartum. So this new offering is prep, process, release, embody, power. We're going to process and release old, stuck emotions, childhood, wounding, old conditioning, old programming, all the things that no longer serve us. We don't want to bring that into the birth space with us. And then if anything is coming through during that time, again, that transition period, you're entering as one person, you're leaving as a new person, and then we have this whole postpartum period to deal with as this new person. And again, sometimes it's hard when you have one foot in one space, one foot in the other, and really letting go of the old, embracing the new, and dealing with the fluctuating hormones and all of that. And so I wanted to come on and get more specific on that new offering locally. If we're working in person together, I am rolling this into a bunch of new packages that are going to come out in the new year. So if you're with me now, you know, you're always welcome to these extra calls that I've offered. If you're pregnant now and are wanting to hire me, these new prices are going to go into effect next year. So for the next, where are we? October, November, December. So for the next 2.5 months, you know, this is what I do already. And so if you're thinking about hiring a doula and you're local and you've maybe looked at my website, now's the time to get in with this, because I already do this with my clients. It's part of the folder that I give you, and I'm offering the extra calls. Once the new year comes, it's going to be all new packaging and all new pricing. If you're not local, if we're not working together in a doula relationship, this prep emotional coaching is an offering we can do virtually from anywhere, anytime. And that's what I love about it, because this feedback I got were from moms from all over the place. And especially a lot of them it seemed like they were military wives, where they, you know, were away from home, away from support, their husband's away. And so that really hit with me, you know, like I was like, oh, what a niche to specialize in that, where, you know, military families don't always have their partners with them, don't always have their support system with them. What a great niche to really offer this support to. So from wherever you are, PrEP is officially launching, and I'm excited. But again, I made a post a few days ago. It's a bittersweet offering. I'm really proud and excited to be offering it, and sad that it's and I don't want to say underutilized, but it's just not given enough attention. You know, that whole 4th trimester, the postpartum, it's an underserved part of birth in the birth community. It's an afterthought, and we need to make it a forethought. And so that's what I'm here to do, shed light on. So I am excited to be offering it and doing it. And again, this ties into life and life coaching, and I do that as well. And my favorite niche of life coaching is relationship coaching. And so that's, I feel like, something that my husband and I have really, really worked on and we're good at, and our relationship is, it thrives, and our communication and our boundaries and all of that. So, if you're watching this and you're like, I'm not pregnant, I'm not postpartum, I'm here for life coaching as well, as I love the relationship aspect of it. That's probably my favorite part, but life coaching in general, love to be offering that, love to be working one-on-one with any and all of you. And so if you're watching this live or watching the replay, you can click the share button on the bottom and just tag people that you think that this would help, that this would speak to. And I would love that, and I would appreciate that. And I appreciate all of you who have joined tonight. And you'll be seeing more rolling out, posts and graphics and the packages they're going to roll out next year. But this is all happening, and I'm super excited to be the one to join you on your journey. So any questions, comments, leave them in the comments below. And if you're on the replay, I'll come back, I'll check them, I'll answer them, we'll have a conversation. And if you're interested to go further, just shoot me a message in my inbox. Or if you know me, text me. So have a good night, have a good day, wherever you are, whatever time you're watching this. Thank you, I appreciate you, and we'll connect soon. Take care.